elements to what we're doing that are very new, and this application of technology. I want you to think about this. Anybody ever have a run-in with the VA? In many ways, the process hasn't really changed in 240 years. It could be papyrus. It's still kind of the same process. But wait a second. When I went to Iraq, there was no iPhone and there was no Facebook. And now, today, 1 billion people are on Facebook at the same time, and everybody in this room has a smartphone. So all of a sudden, the whole world, whether it's how you book a flight or travel, use your barcode to buy a macchiato at the coffee shop, everything has changed around us, but Veterans Affairs has been completely stagnant. Well, we're working to change that. And here's the last thing that I would offer to you all, and I think that you all appreciate this because you are the alternatives in many ways to some of the government solutions. And you ask somebody, next time you're talking to an investor, you say, and this is Kate, true for me, I lost my wedding ring. And if the hotel called me to say that they found it, and they say, sir, how would you like me to ship that? UPS, or United Postal Service, or the post office, or FedEx? I'd probably say FedEx. What would you say? I want you to think about that. I want you to think, is there room for private solutions to bridge gaps that sometimes we thought were government? Listen, the VA, the federal VA, has an important role in taking care of veterans. Make no mistake, it's a responsibility. The nation goes to war, the nation must take care of our veterans. But nowhere in the charter does it say that the VA is going to be responsible for making sure that after 20 years after somebody's come home from war, that they've got meaningful employment and relationships with their families. That's not built in. But we as a community know how important that is for our national defense and for the survivability of these important, potentially thriving members. And we're going to make those steps. You all are committed to making those steps. Well, we're committed to taking those steps with you. And what I want you to appreciate is that this America Serves model is now really just starting to gain some traction. As I mentioned, we had our first year in Pittsburgh. We celebrated our first year in Charlotte. And as we go, we are learning. And this learning model is changing how communities are interacting with each other, how people hold each other to account. And you know what? Sometimes nonprofits, Bert, they're scared that. Everybody loves accountability until they're held accountable. Everybody loves high standards until they're held to a high standard. Then the standards, no, that's fair. Well, so that's what I meant. Sometimes some communities aren't ready to have a mirror held up to them. But if you're in a community that is, and you would like to see an America Serves market come to you, I would hope that you would reach out to us, because as we do go into these new communities, we're looking for you all to be kind of early partners in bringing all of this activity together. That's number one. The number two piece, by the way, do I believe in sports therapy? Jesus Christ saved my life. CrossFit saved my life. I'm doing an Ironman tomorrow. So I mean, right, So, but having said that, we are in the midst now of kind of community by community. And Bert, what we're looking to do is find partners where we already have markets to join into those markets. And Lynn offered me a very enlightening story. She said, Ilario, I've actually reached out to your market in Charlotte, and we've given us a farm. So that's something that we're going to go troubleshoot. As I mentioned, this effort is new and young, and we're going to work through, whatever flow challenges there are. But we're excited about the promise that it holds. We're excited about the promise. So let me reiterate this. We're in Pittsburgh. We're in New York City. We're in upstate New York now. We're in Charlotte, North Carolina. We're in Raleigh, Durham, and Fort Bragg. We're soon to be in Jacksonville all the way to Goldsboro. We're in Charleston, South Carolina. We're active in Hampton Roads area of Virginia in a partnership with United Way. And we're going active in San Antonio, Texas, starting in November, and in Seattle, Washington. So these are places where we are active, and we'll be looking to start some new networks, and we will be looking for your help. So if you want to help us as pioneers, as kind of bringing, if you feel like your community's okay, kind of getting it, but could use this boost, we don't bring matches and sticks. We bring gasoline. You are the matches and the sticks. You're the ones in your community saying, hey, American Legion, come sit at the table with Vietnam veterans. By the way, why did Vietnam Veterans of America form? I'm going to say this on video. I'm going to get in trouble for it. Why did they form? Because when some of those brothers came home, they were not accepted by the American Legion. This is a fact. Sometimes, sadly, generationally, we've seen this with race. We've seen this with wars. We've been doing a series of events at the Nisei Veterans Committee in Washington, Seattle, where these Japanese American warriors were fighting in World War II while their parents were interned in American camps. This is a reality. I mention this because we think that we as a culture are always going to do the right thing by our veterans, but I think nobody in this room knows more than you all and me that we can talk this great game as a nation, but we don't always deliver against that promise of really taking care of our warfighters. So I want to offer to you that we're in these trenches with you. I am Ilario Pantano at IVMF. We have a presentation, Bert, that I'm not sure if you're going to be sending out or not, but my email, if you would all please take it down, I'd love for you to do that. And I'd also like for you to take down my cell phone if you're ready. My email is igpantan@sear.edu. So now I'm going to give you my bona fides. You ready? India, Golf, Papa, Alpha, November, Tango, Alpha, November, at Sierra, Yankee, Romeo, Dot, Echo, Delta, Uniform. Again, that's igpantan@sear.edu. If you lose track of that, here's what you need to know. You can Google IVMF and Syracuse University, and we've got tons of great research and programs, and we do all kinds of, if you would like to see, if you know a couple of women veterans and you think that your city or town is right to have a Women Veterans Igniting the Spirit of Entrepreneurship seminar where for 3 days we bring the best speakers, college professors, business owners, and everything to your community and put women veterans, we're happy to partner with you on that. If you think that your community is right for a service model, we're happy to partner with you on that. We're looking for great partners. We think that this partnership with R4 Alliance is going to be really exciting because while the R4 Alliance is a national umbrella, and you all will take veterans from anywhere, it would be great to serve those that are right next door, right? I mean, honestly, how many of you would be heartbroken to know that you've done this great job taking care of a veteran from across the coast, and yet somebody in your own community didn't know about you, and then as a result is suffering in silence because of that? That would break your heart. It would kill me. And I've struggled with that. So we want to help you as a force multiplier. We want to help to promote the network. And then in turn, we would love your help as advocates in local communities, making local communities stronger. But I think there's a great room for overlap. We'll define what that looks like more. I think you're only going to need to pay us like $1 million a year. It's going to be no, it's the opposite. It's the opposite. We go out to raise the money to support your efforts. That's and we're in a position to be able to do that. And we're glad to do that, and we're honored. So with that, let me ask if there's some questions about how this works. I know I've kind of moved through this quickly, but I do have to make a flight.
I just want to make a comment, Ilario.
Oh, sorry.
Coming from North Carolina, just for everybody's essay, we got a lot of great nonprofit organizations, a lot of veterans organizations. I'm trying not to pop up because I scared the lady next to me yesterday.
Good.
I forgot who it was. But we have a lot of great nonprofit organizations, a lot of great veterans organizations. In our community, of course, we're all military based, a lot of retirees, a lot of military families, people that stayed in the community. However, what we didn't have, what Ilario pointed out, was the data to support what we need to go up there to legislation. What we discussed yesterday, we need that data. And what IVMF is providing us is that data. Like I said, it's brand new, it may take some time, but they're able to track how many veterans are in need, what support and resources were provided to them, where did the VA fail, and it's that kind of information that our community was lacking because we weren't all connected. I know what the American Legion is able to provide. However, there's gaps in some areas, for example, legal. We know a lot of veterans are suffering from legal issues because of PTSD and TBI. And I don't know in my community who do I refer that veteran to. Well, now I know because we're all on a same resource database where we're all connected and we know who to refer someone to if we're not able to provide those resources. So it really does provide that in the communities.
That's a great point because so many of you, Sir Frederick, will you hold that up? So many of you operate like this. Oh my gosh, yeah, I know there's that program, if I could just think of what was her name again, it's just down the street. And by the way, this is completely, at least you've got this. Half the people out there that sell themselves as helping veterans don't know any of this. But this is built up over years, over decades for some of you, right? This Rolodex that makes you good, and maybe there's that person in your community, maybe it's a county veteran service officer, or the service officer, the DAD, or the VFW, together. Maybe there are a couple of those folks out there, but they built that institutional information up over time, and then the moment that they try to make a connection and it's a voicemail to an email to a thing with no accountability, here's what, if you've already heard from Unitas, you know a little bit about how this stuff works, but I want you to think about these networks that we build like this. I want you to close your eyes with me for a second, don't go to sleep. Everybody remember Black Sheep Squadron, Robert Conrad? I'm dating myself, I'm an old guy. Think about a World War II South Pacific airstrip. I want you to think about kind of palm trees, sandy, very bright, so bright you have to close your eyes. And it's kind of the control tower, little one-room shack, chalkboard, microphone squawk from time to time, little kind of the curtain blow a little bit, little fan just kind of lazily turning. And all of a sudden you can kind of hear an airplane's engines in the horizon, and somebody's coming into our landing strip. And we've got a veteran. And that's how veteran service is. And then they come in and everyone kind of can scramble out and try and help in that moment. What do you need, gas or fuel or whatever? And then that plane kind of takes off. And you never really knew when that veteran was coming, and you never knew what happened when they left. And in that moment you would try to focus on them, but then maybe if more were coming, then it started to be a little bit of a chaotic thing. Well, why is it that Veterans Affairs is still like that today, when in real life airports, everything is completely digital, and they know before you've even gotten to the airport. And then they know where your luggage, or they're supposed to know where your luggage is. Well, that's what we're trying to do with this digital network, to basically make sure, because one of the things that we're doing is we have some different work programs where we're partnering back up into installations, and we're actually able to start making connections before guys and gals are even separating. And so then we can start to produce some of those young men and women into your ranks as well. But the thinking is, if we could take what had been a World War II era chalkboard mentality to how we service veterans and make it 21st century, highly accountable, customer service oriented, how was your experience, and now start to rank that and what was the outcome of that experience, and start to put that together, would that help all of you in your respective work? Probably. Hopefully. Yeah. Hopefully. That's the intent. That's the goal. So we had a question in the back.
It sounds like you're setting up in densely populated metropolitan centers.
That's true.
I live in Montana. Montana is the second least populated state in the United States. We just went over 1 million. There's 18 million people in LA County. There's just over 1 million people in the entire state of Montana. Services are spread out, and Montana is also number 2 in veterans per capita in the United States. So my question is, do you have any vision, down the road to come into a place like Montana to bring resources together to create that focal point for vets up there?
I'll tell you, brother, it's a great question. And I'll tell you that the truth is, this is in large part driven by population centers. It's true. And that while per capita, as a percentage, the veteran population may be high, when we look at aggregate veteran population, then the numbers start to change a little bit. Having said that, what's really neat is I'm sure there are a couple of well-intentioned, well-meaning folks and communities in Montana that could potentially marshal the resources and start working together as a community. Like I said, we don't bring matches and we don't bring sticks. We bring gas. But if somebody in Montana started to do the work of building that collective, here's what I know. We're starting in Seattle, an effort that we expect could have spillover to the Pacific Northwest more broadly. And so then we're even thinking that potentially, while we're right now in the western part of Washington State, that it's possible that then we look at a unit in the eastern part of Washington State with overlap into Idaho. And so the bottom line is that everything is possible. It's probably not in the 2017 calendar unless we work to put it there, because Bruce Willis, that has a 50-mile ranch or whatever, decides he wants to pony down, and then we'll make it happen. So if you can get me Bruce Willis, I'll get you a service market. Okay. But you see where I'm going with that? Any other questions? Don't have the questions be about Bruce Willis, Lynn.
Sorry, I don't mean Bruce Willis, which I did. 2 things real quick. The struggle that we've had with the Charlotte market is that we are a national organization. We've had vets and military families come from 21 states, so we didn't fit the model. But in conversation with them just a couple of weeks ago, they're like scratching their heads, not trying to figure out what to do with us. So we will be in the program, I would say, in the next month. And the second thing is, it's a year old in Charlotte, and I had the pleasure of reconnecting with Ilario a couple months ago when they did their annual report. And they're making a difference. They're changing lives in Charlotte. The numbers are not huge right now, but they're good. And I'm excited that after first-year effort to see what they have accomplished. So as you guys, I'm giving you a testimonial. As much as you guys can join in, I would encourage you to join in, you know, make those connections in your market. It's moving through North Carolina pretty quickly, and, yeah, we're opening, what, 3 more markets in the next?
It will be a total of
In the
4.
next
North
year?
Carolina will be the first state to
Okay.
have almost kind of a statewide level of coverage, but it's about communities, so only because we have a number of community domes, imagine like umbrellas, only because we
Yeah.
have kind of 4 beach umbrellas that we get enough shade to cover the whole state. Some states, you know, where, and listen, sir, you struck upon an issue that one of the major issues facing veterans that folks don't realize sometimes is transportation, right? Especially with the rurality. Now, the VA is aware of this, and I want to be clear for all of you. We are not looking to overthrow, or, you know, this is not a VA bash. There's a lot of things. I don't think anybody ever goes to the VA thinking like they want to start becoming like an unresponsive. I mean, think about this, right? Most of these folks are your brothers and sisters that were veterans themselves, but it's a, you know, huge bureaucracy, it's a huge organization, and they've been facing a lot of challenges. What we're looking to do is to try and help them as a partner, and frankly, we want to take some of the load off of them, where a veteran might better benefit from some time spent at your camp, or fishing or rafting with you, or spending some time with a service animal than they would from another pill. So we're very excited to offer these kinds of alternatives. And then this lovely young lady back there.
Thank you for the information you're sharing, by the way. And so she had mentioned joining in with the organization. How would you define that? Like, if I go back to Phoenix and I want to get plugged in with you guys, what would that entail? If you could answer that. I know it's a broad question. So.
Well, no, it's a great question, because sadly, the truth right now is, while there's a lot of membership here that I think would be excited to participate, a lot of you can't yet. And that's just a function of the reality of our rollout. So by being part of R4, you will by extension be part of us as we're starting to partner more locally, because what's neat is as somebody in a local community, as Charlotte starts to more closely engage with R4 and the membership more broadly, your offering will be available to this smaller community set as something that somebody might be able to go attend. In terms of the local communities, it's kind of that list that I rattled off. And you'll know, as you hear these markets come to your communities, try to engage in those communities. Lynn's tried. She's had to put a little bit of an effort. These are growing pains, and we're going to make sure that this model can accommodate. I just want to speak to that. It's because it's localized like that, where month after month, I know that you're going to be in the room, and that I can ask you what happened when I sent, you know, Billy over to you last week. How did that work out? Billy who? Billy I sent to you last week. How did that work out? You know, you have one drop off with, how many of you feel that your veterans are your veterans? We feel a possession over them, right? We love them. This is our people. These are people. These are our people. And so one of the big issues in this community, Bert, is trust, right? And so by having this network, when I talked about the World War II runway airport versus the modern day airport, it's not just about being able to send somebody over to you by an email. It's about, imagine that air traffic controller is seeing the flight pattern, knowing that that plane is hovering and holding, waiting to be served by any one of you, and that they were served well, or that ultimately that they weren't, or that ultimately you were overloaded and needed to say no, and that's okay too, because then we were able to route them to somebody else. But to that veteran, it was transparent. They didn't know that they were declined, they just know that they asked for some services, and that they got that the control tower plugged them into the services that they need, that they were called, that they were taken in. And so for them, it's transparent. They don't know that the county workforce solutions folks said no, but that this nonprofit said yes. For them, it's almost a transparent experience, so it's really exciting. Or did you have something else? And then, did you already?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead then. And then Lynn, you've already got a couple in there.
So I'm just a spontaneous invitee by Jenny and some other wonderful people that I met. But I live in Seattle, and my interest is very piqued because Timber, my service animal, and I, we received these amazing invitations. We're going to be at Starbucks headquarters
Excellent.
as a panelist for the Theater of War.
Excellent.
We're linked in with Red, White, and Team Red, White, and Blue because we kicked off Old Glory. And even though we're all the way over there, I participated with World Team Sports. And AFN is going to be at the Theater of War and the Starbucks Military Alliance. And Microsoft was actually the host for Team Red, White, and Blue. And we do a lot of stuff at the University of Washington, as you mentioned, when war comes home. So I'm very excited when I hear Seattle because we actually are very close knit. The Washington State Department of Veterans Affairs, they have every year Women Veterans Summit, and our governor, our governor was there, and now we have what's called the Service to Service service dog conference, and it's called Washington Goes to the Dogs. Timber and I are on that panel, and I just want to know so far who is in there and maybe what little tiny part that we can be, whether or not it's just putting the word out or saying, you know, you guys.
Would everybody agree that this young lady is the most wonderful advocate, right? We can have her on our side. So you know what role your role as an advocate, your role in coming, talking, and sharing the word. I mean, everybody here just realizes how you just shared this great word about what's going on in Seattle. That's number one. Number two, Alfie, who is the director of Washington State. So I was Alfie in North Carolina. So she's all, so the whole state, that everybody's part of this network. So we're connecting right here. We'll make this happen off mic. Pardon me, everybody. And
Here you go.
and with that, young lady, just leave it right there. I'm coming right back there. Miss, did you have a question? And then Bert, I've got a boogie.
There's 4 of us in here from Phoenix. There's 4 agencies here right now. And so if we were to get like maybe this meeting from our other, network agencies, like a town hall, is that something you guys would
We would love, and then we could do a more detail. I think you'll all agree this is a little bit quick and dirty because it has to be, you're all ready to catch your flights, I've got to go catch mine, and everybody's like all conferenced out. But the opportunity to come and do a presentation and really do a deep dive in how this works and what some of the gaps are, we would love that opportunity. Arizona has a wonderful director, a Secretary of Veterans Affairs, a female Air Force officer, one of the few states, Alfie in Washington State and Arizona as well. But we would love the opportunity to come and partner with you all. Yes, ma'am. So I'll give you my last card. And Bert, with that, you have a great meeting in New York. Okay, brother? God bless you all.